Welcome to episode 6 of the Work Awesome podcast. Before we jump into the topic this week, I do want to point out a couple of things about our social media pages. If you're not following us on Instagram, then you don't know that we just wrapped up a giveaway for a pair of AirPods. We will be doing more giveaways in the future, so definitely follow us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, or whatever platform you're watching this on, so that you can stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Work Awesome podcast, any giveaways that we're doing, and any other content that we're pushing out on those platforms that you might not catch in these videos. This week's topic is authenticity. We go down a few different routes of conversation during the podcast, covering everything from personal branding to your presence online on those social media platforms. We even get some insights from Sarah, our recruiter, on what recruiters expect during the interview process on how you can show that you are truly being authentic. I really hope that you enjoy this episode. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you on the other side. Welcome to the Work Awesome podcast. This is episode 6, and we are talking about authenticity. The title is Be You, Authenticity is Key. Today I have Sally, Janine, and Sarah with me. Sally's actually down in our PCB office in Florida. Janine works here at Pax River, and Sarah, of course, is our wonderful talent resource manager that works at HQ. This episode, the description, I always read this straight from the screen, so it sounds very scripted. But the principle is simple. When we are authentic selves, people get a clear picture of who we are. This can shape relationships, business connections, and in the long run, a path to success. In today's episode, we will take a look at the importance of being authentic in the workplace and what it can mean for your career. So the first thing that we do is an icebreaker. This one is a little bit challenging. So the question is, what business idea do you think would be super profitable, but that you would never want to pursue? I'll start since it is a little bit tougher. My idea is a ice cream delivery service. It sounds like a really good idea because the only time I ever want ice cream is when I don't have ice cream. So I'll be sitting on my couch and crave some ice cream, go to my freezer, don't have it, but I don't want to go to the store either. It'd be nice if just on call you could say, hey, bring me a couple scoops of strawberry ice cream or something like that. Sounds great. Sounds like a lot of technical challenges because of the freezing aspect of it, but I don't know. I think it would be a good idea if somebody actually went with it. Sarah, what do you think?
Oh, I knew you were going to say my name first.
You're the one, you had the most practice.
I think that it would be super profitable to have a personal executive assistant. So not for your job, but for your personal life, where they just kind of make sure that everything is organized and set up and any challenges that you have are kind of smoothed out. So nothing to do with work, but home life. Especially I think right now with everything people are dealing with working from home and having kids at home and all of that. I don't want to be anyone's personal executive assistant, but I think it would be something that would be very profitable, and I would definitely like one.
Someone to make your doctor appointments and your
and
log your kids on to their teacher websites and
exactly
everything.
Yeah. Any gifts that need to be purchased,
right?
Parties planned, anything.
Remember all the birthdays.
Right. Yep. So there you go, Anne.
Nice. Dean, Sally, any ideas?
I'm gonna leapfrog off of yours, Ian, and I'll just add to that maybe a wine delivery service. I think we all probably need that right now.
Yes.
That sounds very profitable. I know a lot of people that would take advantage of that.
Right.
So something that my husband has never developed an app before, but he can, and we talked about that being a part of what he does with his business. So my husband does branding and websites and all of that for a living. And so one of the things we talked about was making our community more accessible, and possibly he works with the chamber. He's done the website for the chamber, but it just seems to think because you made us think really fast. We need an app that tells us where food trucks are.
Oh.
So most of the time you have to go on and look on individual Facebook pages or Instagrams. And most of the ones here are just kind of starting out. Their menus are off, like all of that. So it would be kind of a common place for you to go and say, I'm on the beach, I'm at this location. Kind of like DoorDash, I'm here, what's this to me? Because right now you really have to fish through a whole lot of content. So this would become an aggregator and get you down to, this is the information I need right now in this place today from 1 to 3.
Yeah, that's cool. That actually is a really good idea. The one
So
that
don't steal it from me.
I'm not going to steal it. But the one that comes to mind that's similar is the I think it's called Untapped, which is for beers. So you can look up like where breweries and where the beers are, even at restaurants, which is cool.
Yeah,
that's actually a really good idea, and someone should probably pursue it.
Yeah, I'll get him on that.
All right, so let's jump into the topic of discussion, authenticity. The first question I want to ask you guys, what is authenticity to you? To me, it's really just laying it all out there, being who you actually are in all cases. So whether that's online or in a meeting or anywhere really, it's always just being your true self.
I thought about this morning. I have like shower moments where you're not having to focus on anything else. And I thought our truest selves are when we're in about preschool. We're able to communicate, we're able to walk, we're able to be ourselves, but we're not so enamored with media and all these different choices that I think we're our purest selves. My dad thought I was colorblind when I was little because I would pick out these wacko outfits and I would be so confident. I mean, I would put on my jellies and my, striped pants and my plaid shirt, and he thought he just let me celebrate myself, but he felt something was going on. But I think that's when we're really true to ourselves. We know what we like to eat. We know what tastes good. We know what weather we like. We are attracted to friends for things that I think are extremely pure. And I think as more things come in, things kind of get confused. And I think we make choices as an adult. I think we kind of go through phases. But I think that's where we're really authentic, is where we're our truest selves. And if we look at like a preschool class, their drawings don't look the same. Their clothes don't look the same. They make very different choices about what they'd like to do after school. And I think if we kind of got back to that place, we all have those kinds of desires and motivations and things that really drive us and motivate us. And I think as we get older, it's a little harder to figure that out. But to me, like a preschooler is 100% authentic. They're going to say whatever they feel. Sometimes it's scary.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think even now, so like we talked about this in the last podcast, that when the internet wasn't a thing, we didn't have to worry about the outside forces kind of pushing us in different directions. But now with the different ad platforms that are on like Facebook and Instagram, we are literally being targeted to be pushed in different directions. So I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that too. And actually been doing this program online for the last probably 4 or 5 months. And one of their taglines is to get back to your true authentic self before all of this programming kind of has been laid on you by society or, all this politics and religion and family and everything that conditions you to want approval or acceptance or belonging or something. But, that inner voice before you start thinking, well, how's this going to look? Or what's this going to sound like to other people? It's that first, initial reaction, that intuition you have that a lot of us don't even listen to anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or we think we'll be judged.
Right.
Yes.
Live all around us as an adult.
Right.
If I wear this, is it weird? If I go to this place or hang out with these people, is it different? And, we choose groups of people and we choose friends based on lots of different things, but there's also that factor too where you think you might be judged.
Which
so
to me,
that's always out there. It's always looming.
Yeah, to me, I think there's like two two versions of ourselves, if you will. So like there's ourselves, the ones that we act in public, and it is filtered because, like you said, we're scared of being judged.
Right.
And then there's like this term that is becoming a little bit popular, our unapologetic selves, the ones that you take that filter off and it doesn't matter who sees what you're doing. You're literally unapologetically you. What do you think,
right.
Sarah?
What does Brene Brown say? She says you can have, it takes courage to be that way. And you can either have courage or comfort. You can't have both. So you got to choose one. So to be authentic and true to yourself, it takes that courage a lot of times. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, Sarah.
No,
you're fine. I love it. So Ian, could you repeat your question to me?
What is authenticity to you?
So I think both Sally and Jean and Ian, you two have touched on exactly what authenticity is, and making sure that you're being true to yourself and that you're not putting a pretend you out there that isn't legitimately who you are and who you want to be, essentially. So I agree with that.
Yeah. So now to shift it back to like personal branding a little bit, what role do you guys think authenticity plays in personal branding? I guess when I think of personal branding, it right now is mostly an online presence. You're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram. I just lost my train of thought. That's unapologetically me. I lose my train of thought all the time. What do you filter yourself online? And I guess, how do you show your true self online? Is it through text? Is it through video or photos? What do you guys think is the best way to show your authenticity and connect that back to your personal brand?
I think social media right now is kind of hostile. And so I try to stay away from, not just because we got an email about it, but I try to stay away from politics and all of that. And honestly, I don't know that my friends would even know how I align myself, because I do a lot of that privately. It used to be a big thing. I used to work on campaigns. My brother-in-law was a lobbyist. I worked for him. I hated it. There's a part of it that just didn't fit with me. And so a lot of that for me now is personal. It's something that I realized in a social media platform right now is to me kind of an unsafe environment. It's just, to me, there's people out there that don't handle things well. I'll put it that way. And so I think for me, my social media presence, you're going to find pictures of my dog, pictures of stuff we eat. And that is truly who I am. And people are only getting 40% of me. But the other parts, I just don't think that it's worth it for me professionally to put all that out there, because it's not going to be received maybe well. And right now, I don't think that, politically speaking, people are having good conversations. I think it's very antagonistic. And I think until we get to a place where we can reach across lines and start having open dialogue like preschoolers have, I'm just saying, it all preschool, all that stuff you learned, all those social skills, they carry throughout your whole life. But until we start being able to talk about our differences, I think that social media is a tricky place right now to put yourself out there and, maybe put yourself into an uncomfortable position where people might associate the name of your company with, well, that girl is crazy. She thinks about whatever. And so I think what we carry with us is the company we work for, our families, my husband's business, all that we carry with us. So I try to be careful in that kind of platform.
Sally, I think that's great advice. I think you do, while you're still maintaining your authenticity,
right.
The part that you're putting out there is a little different than maybe what's going on in your personal life. And I do, what I tell my kids is, don't put anything out there that you wouldn't want on a billboard.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the things that I say. And I think that it's important to realize that when you're putting something out on LinkedIn, on any type of social media, it's not the same as having a conversation with someone. It's very different. You don't have the body language to go with it. You don't have the tone of voice. If I say something to you, Ian, you can tell maybe that I'm being sarcastic. Whereas if I put it out on social media and I mean it to be sarcastic, that tone is not really there. So it could be construed. There's not necessarily a context that you would have in a full conversation. So I think that's really good advice. I think you do have to be where you want to maintain your authenticity. You also do need to, look at what's appropriate for you to be putting out there. And
I agree.
Respectful.
Yeah, be respectful and make it more of a conversation and less of a, if you're going to, put some beliefs or something out there, make it into a conversation. But it's so hard to have those conversations through social media. And honestly, I find that, I don't post a lot of things, but I find that, yes, the kids are very savvy about it. And I have more trouble with older relatives that are very, unapologetic and out there and argumentative. Yeah, so it's like, and then you're tiptoeing around those conversations because it's family,
Right. And it's weird because even the generation that I think you're referring to, it happens in my family too. And it's like they put this stuff up online. And then you see them face to face, and it's like it didn't ever happen. It lives online, so that's where it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And things that they would never say to somebody in person, and then it's like, wait a minute, how is this? This is harsh.
Yes.
Like reviews for a restaurant. We actually have a restaurant here in town. It's delicious. If you guys are back, it's a little tiny taco place, and the guy, all of his branding now, his T-shirt, everything say, the worst taco one lady on Facebook ever had, and he's turned it to his advantage. She just really reamed him on Facebook, and everybody else knows that their tacos are incredible, so he used it to his advantage, and it's hilarious. The T-shirts have sold out. My husband tried to buy one recently, and they were gone. And so,
I love that.
To walk up to him and say that? No. Has she helped him make a whole lot more money? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's a cool story. I definitely need to make a trip down there for some tacos, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's really good.
That sounds good.
Sarah, did you talk about this yet? I don't know if you jumped in.
I don't know either.
We are talking about specifically online. How does authenticity and personal branding affect? Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't normally happen. Like I said, my train of thought is like over here today. I don't know why.
It's a long, short week, right?
I think yes.
You know what? Yeah. It's hard to fit 40 hours of work in a 32-hour week.
It really is. All right. So I think we talked about a lot of these already, but how can somebody be authentic online? Some of the tips that I wrote down, and that, like I said, we've chatted through already, are like write like you speak. So the way that I learned to write online and for a lot of my social posts. So everything that, if you're following me on like LinkedIn or Facebook right now, all of those posts are from me. It's not somebody else writing it. And it truly is how I talk. Do you guys, there are some, I'm not going to obviously like curse excessively in any of my posts or anything. But do you guys agree with that? Do you think you should just write the way that you speak, and that kind of really gives a window into who you are?
I completely agree. And I know you like Gary Vee, right?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, I know. So I've kind of been following him the last few weeks, and he just puts it all out there. And
yes, but he's from New Jersey, so that is his unapologetic
totally in line
self.
with who he is, exactly. So you got to be aware that you're talking to everybody, but you want to be able to be yourself and to be honest also, and not sugarcoat things. But you also don't want to fall into the trap of I'm just posting all the highlights of my life. You know, I want to be real, like if I'm having a hard day or whatever. And people want to see that too. And they want to feel connected, because if you're just posting, you know, the highlights, then people don't feel connected with you, you know?
And I think too, that when we have the opportunity to use a social media platform, honesty is important. So if you've, you know, been through something where you feel like somebody could relate, or, you know, like, you know, had a family member who's had cancer or something like that. Sometimes I feel like there's connections like that. So, you know, we're from Hurricane Michael. We found this amazing handyman, craftsman, whatever. So I put that on Facebook. I got probably 30 phone calls, text messages, etc., because people here are so desperate for that kind of help. And so if you have that kind of opportunity to help people, then that is definitely an opportunity to make social media shine, where you're able to show a puppy that needs to be adopted or whatever. Those kinds of things I think are very positive for social media. It's also a very quick way to get information to others, where otherwise we would have had to, you know, use the telephone or, you know, do some snail mail. That is the nice part about social media, is being able to broadcast information quickly into a lot of people.
I agree, Sally. I think part of it is being authentic, but part of it is also being relevant and not just posting every little thing that you do, you know, making your posts value added. And, you know, whether it's like you said, hey, this puppy is available for adoption, or this is a great article, this is a great resource, or, you know, look what's going on in our area. This, you know, this restaurant just opened. They could really use some help. Whatever it is, even just a beautiful picture that brightens someone's day, you know, but if you're posting 10, 15, 20 things a day, or even 2 or 3 every day, then chances are people are not going to necessarily be as apt to pay attention to what you're doing. So I think being authentic and being relevant are two, and authentic, relevant, and considerate.
Absolutely. So we are getting close to 30 minutes, so I'm going to run through the rest of these tips. And then if you guys have anything to add, you can add in at the end. So the other ones I had were show emotion. The next one, if you wouldn't say it in real life, don't say it online. And we've talked about that a little bit. Share personal pictures. Again, we talked about sharing dogs and the food that we're eating. That all adds to kind of your personal brand and authenticity. And then it's okay to show your vulnerabilities. And we also talked about that. So were there any other like short tips like that you guys came across or wanted to add in?
I ask my husband this because it's something he does on a daily basis, and I hear the conversations because we're spending lots of quality time together right now. I hear with new clients, and so it's been kind of fun because he's a small business, so he loves supporting small business, and so a lot of times he got a guy the other day who does land clearing. He had no idea what to do. He said, I don't know, hard hat and outside. He's trying to build this brand and build an image, and so Sean was talking to him. And he said, a brand is personal brand, or your business brand is how you make somebody feel the minute you leave your room, even if it's just a few moments. Or in that, if somebody sees your brand, what do you leave them with? What is that thing that they walk away, and how did you make them feel? And he said, always be honest. He said, I'm always honest with my customers. I want my customers to be honest with me, and I want them, through their brand, through the words they say online, etc. I want for them to express exactly what it is that they do, the promises that they're making, and to tell somebody that they're going to follow through. And he only puts it on people who he trusts. So he said all of that builds his brand while he's building other people's brands. But I like that, how that thing makes you feel. There's a little psychology in branding, I think. How do you make people feel? How does that brand make them feel? You know, how do you feel about Pepsi? Do you have memories tied with that? The same thing is the way Vivian makes people feel. When people start seeing our logo more in Panama City, a whole lot more now, they're gonna have a feeling about that. Oh man, I really like those people. Their customer service is awesome. What is it we leave people with?
That's a great thought.
Absolutely.
Good advice.
the last question that I want to tie this all back to recruiting is for Sarah specifically, and I know Janine and Sally, you don't really do hiring in your positions, but if you have something to add, feel free to jump in. Sarah, does authenticity in a person matter to you as a recruiter?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest success that you can find when you're putting people in a position is to put them in a position that is a position that they're going to really be happy in and that they're going to feel comfortable with, feel competent in, and thrive in. So if people are not telling you exactly what if I'm saying to a candidate, what are you looking for in a career transition, and they're not authentic and honest, then how are we going to make sure that that's a good fit? Right. And I think that we want to make sure that that candidate is happy in their role, and that the role is going to be, a place where they are going to succeed. We don't want to set anyone up for failure. And I don't think any candidate would want to set themselves up to be in a miserable position. So I think authenticity and honesty are very important when we're looking at putting someone in a position, and really giving that recruiter, information when they're doing the first screening, when they call and say, hey, you know what, why'd you apply to this job? What are you looking for in a career transition? What are your next steps? What are you hoping, to gain from this experience? And just, being honest can help the recruiter realize if maybe this is a good fit. Maybe there's another position that is coming down the line that the recruiter knows about that's going to be a better fit. So I do think it's very important to be authentic.
And you think you can sense that when you talk to somebody, the pre-screen and then in the interview? You get pretty good at...
That's a really good question. I think sometimes, yes. I think sometimes you can. Not always, though. Not always. I think, though, that sometimes if people are not being authentic and not being 100% truthful, then some of the answers will kind of lead that way and kind of not line up, the way it's looking or the way they want it to look. So I hope that we don't really have that as a problem. You want to think that candidates are looking for the same perfect match that recruiters and hiring managers are looking for too. But I don't think you can always tell, unfortunately.
Right. Well, you've done this so long, and you probably have such a great feel for it too.
Not perfect though.
I was going to ask about that, and you don't have to get super specific. Has there been a time that I'm a millennial, so I like little terms, where you were catfished and someone wasn't being authentic? You hired them, and then what was the outcome of that, I guess?
And it was like, surprise!
Yeah.
The real thing.
So I think that if people... I can't really relate to a specific situation, but I think if someone's in a position and they're constantly applying for positions, even, maybe they've been in a position for a month or so and they're constantly applying, they're still looking for that new position, then I don't think we've necessarily done a great job of putting them in a position. Right. And that's what I would say, because even if this is like a starting point for someone, I think if you're really going to go into a position and have that be your starting point, you'd want to stay there long enough to make a success of that position and to learn something from that. Otherwise, I'm not sure that we're doing a great job of putting you in a job. If you get in that position and you're looking for the next step within a very short amount of time,
right,
then I think we probably haven't done a good job of matching. So not that it's not good to want to, have career growth. I'm not saying that. I think eventually, that's definitely not a bad idea. It's just if automatically you're like, what's my next step? And you're not really embracing the present, then maybe we haven't done a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've actually talked about this before. It's an unfortunate truth that government contractors are used as like stepping stones to either progress their career rapidly or to move from the contracting world into like the working specifically for the government. So.
Right. And I think sometimes people don't realize that if you get in a position and you really knock it out of the park, there's probably growth within that very position. And that's a huge compliment to the person in the role, from my opinion. If you can go in that position and make it more than it was originally intended to, wow, you've really mastered that. Right. So, and I do see that with government contracting in positions where, the scope of responsibility has, increases and the level of responsibility. So I have seen that, and that is always very impressive to me when candidates can make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining me today. I enjoyed this conversation because I love personal branding and branding in general. So this little series of episodes really excites me. On the next episode, we are talking about LinkedIn and what your LinkedIn profile should look like. So definitely stay tuned for that. Again, thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see everybody on the next episode.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Ian.
Bye.
So how are you being authentic? Let us know in the comments. If you're not watching this on YouTube, head over to one of our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Comment on any of the posts that we're making this week and give us your inputs on what authenticity means to you and how you're displaying authenticity in your everyday life. This is a really important topic, and I hope you got some really great value out of this episode. If you know somebody that you think could get some value out of this episode as well, please share this with them so that they can get all that same value that you found as well. Thank you again, and I'll see you for the next episode of the Work Awesome Podcast. The Work Awesome Podcast is brought to you by Avian. Avian is a 49% employee-owned company founded by retired U.S. Navy test pilots who believe passion and talent are the right traits to get the job done. Avian operates in a culture that thrives on innovation, creativity, and the entrepreneurial spirit. Instead of offering services through mere business transactions, Avian is redefining the government services industry by creating meaningful experiences and connecting talented people with important work. The passion that Avian's employees have for its work builds better partnerships for the future, and Avian's unique talents create real solutions. At Avian, we move fast, take risks, and don't settle for the status quo. To learn more, visit Avian's website at avian.com. That's avian.com.